结果他们这呢，所有小组什么，他们这样的就是，上届他这样的，贵些说完就说，大家让他们一世界上当我淘宝就你这叫吧，刚的吧，大这些看我是原来了吧，他也叫做，看我叫我觉得叫说你我这我。知道的了，马了叫做就，三界了叫做就，吃了叫做就，见得了叫做就，到不成。第心些我这什么样的我左边三界白，叫我下叫土巴了这了。第心些我都是宁不着多上巴了啥子了，第心些我人些着了啥。第一些我路往给见不了啥子了，第一些我不得了啥子了，第一些我白见了啥，第一些我人家没了啥子了，第一些我人家拿了啥子了，第一些我多的有了啥，人家到我了啥子了，第一些我这么没把了啥子了，第一些我白见了啥子了，第一些我藏把了啥。第一些我上辈见了啥子了，第一些我受了啥子了，第一些我学了啥，第一些我白上了啥子了，第一些我真的白了啥子了，第一些我自己讨厌了啥，第一些我白了啥子了，第一些我年年没白了啥。第一些我生命也不了啥子了，第一些我没到不了啥子了，第一些我真没不了啥子了，我把钱不了啥，第一些我白没白这那不是我把钱不了啥子了，第一些我拿不了啥子了，第一些我真没不了啥，第一些我真没想到养到了啥子了，第一些我红不到一件人家不了啥。第一些我想到那把那个白了啥子了，第一些我越来想到那把的见我了啥子了，第一些我那把那个些白了啥，第一些我归来那我归白了啥子了，第一些我人间白面那把能把了啥，第一些我找什么样的我这边三界人不知道白马了都是白三界人我给见过了啥子。在那老师我就是人家他们家那第一些我找什么样的我这边上去什么的，信息出的所以这边上去什么的就得到中间当了工作子，大概叫我这段这个他们不是帮了考了回来，第个来就把他记住是我的记把他就是一种确认结果了，定的结果了，抽水定的结果了。超度就我的超完了就是一了往什么这个哪一来结果的记录在我的结果了就是一了往那个我是那样的我那完了是我的就做在我的就过了就是一了往那些这个然后甚至鸟的情况根据今天说情况我们意大利一个情况我们一路他过做讲哪路讲还是我那个我马上我就到了老子我就三界就完了，你把没结果就把来节这个看，那分这三界中间的故意习俗结果、讲究结果、黄度结果、财门结果、天白结果，在那里讲了透露查说没结果没别的，那就是这些东西结了。到了公司时，大概结完这两天，他们不是。考完了回来今年现在他都尽把他们tun主今年所结把了塞，他们这种这边给了找我看了，大概是这边给了找我看了我，大概上过这边给了找我看了我的，大概深圳有时候没过来这边给了找我看了，大概深圳说是这边给了找我看了我，大概让他们给了找我。看了我的那东西，极度对象东西东西，那没写过了，空了没写过了，空没有空嘛，那没有那么用处。那他们把养到我这边成就都用送我的经，现在这边上去中等的那就用送我个，现在马这边上去中等的那就用送我，现在他这这边上去中等的那就用送我这边，他给人用送我经，结果他们这呢，所有小组什么他们这样的就是，上届他这样的，贵些说完就说大概让他们一世界上当我淘宝就你这叫吧，刚到的吧，大这些看我是原来了吧，他也叫做。看不着我觉得告诉你我这我
Now take a few moments and let body and mind settle. Now take a few moments. Approach this with an attitude of simply letting body and mind settle into their own places. Trusting that when we get out of the way, body will settle into its own place, finding its own place of ease, finding its own place of being relaxed and natural, and trusting also that mind will find its own place of rest, spaciousness, and ease. If it is helpful to you, anchor your attention on breath arising and ceasing. On breath arising from within your body and dissolving back. Don't think about breath, but feel breath arising and ceasing, arising and dissolving. Notice the sensation of becoming alive, awake, energized as breath arises. Notice the sensations as we become relaxed, at ease, when breath dissolves. Alternating then between becoming awake, alive, energized, and at ease, resting, spacious. These two are the two qualities of mind. Clear, without confusion, having insight, we call vipassana. Stable, unmoving, undisturbed, at ease, we call shamatha. Breathe in with clarity and energy. Breathe out, relax, open, spacious. Now starting on page 4, in the space before us, envision the Buddha, the Lord of Sages, surrounded by unfathomable root and lineage gurus, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Dungi namka dompa dube wampo la gor tsagyu gi lama dang sanje jangzen padu mebe gorne zhubhar som. Antonio, can you please read the refuge on page 4?
I and all modern sentient beings, extensive as the space, take refuge in the root and lineage gurus. We take refuge in perfect Buddhas, the transcendent conquerors. We take refuge in the holy Dharma, free from attachment and peaceful.
There's another line.
We take refuge in the noble assembly of Bodhisattvas endowed with realization and liberation.
Dadan Drova Margya Namge Dadan Yambe Senjen Tamje Zawadan Gyube Lama Namla Gyabzu Jio Yizobe Sanje Jum Dende Namla Gyabzu Jio Shiva Chadra Dambe Jo Namla Gyabzu Jio Rigdro Niden Gyaze Pabe Zo Namla Gyabzu Jio Dadan Drova Margya Namge Dadan Nyambe Semjen Tamje Zawa Dang Gyube Lama Namla Gyabzu Jio Zobe Sanje Chum Dende Namla Gyabzu Jio Shiva Chadra Dambe Jo Namla Gyabzu Jio Ridro Niden Gyase Pabe Zo Namla Gyabzu Jio Dadan Drova Margya Namge Dadan Nyambe Senjen Tamje Jawa Dang Gyube Lama Namla Gyabzu Jio Zobe Sanje Chum Dende Namla Gyabzu Jio Shiva Chadra Dambe Jo Namla Gyabzu Jio Ridro Niden Gyase Pabe Zo Namla Gyabzu Jio. Sandra, can you please read the Four Immeasurables part on page 5?
May all sentient beings who have not realized that a self and all appearances are by nature dharmadhatu have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separated from the happiness which is free from suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion.
Tata nawa tamche jugi yinki rangshin yimpala detarma tope semjen tamche dewa dan dewe gyundan dambara gyurji dungyao ki gyudan drewa gyurji dungyao mepe dewa dame drewa gyurji niring chadan nidan drewe Dan Yong La Nebra Gyurji Dadan Wa Damje Jugi Yinki Rangshin Yimpala Detarma Tobe Semjen Tamje Dewa Dan Dewe Gyundan Dambara Gyurji Dungyao Ki Gyudan Drewa Gyurji Dungyao Mepe Dewa Dhammi Drewa Gyurji Niring Chadang Nidang Drawe Tangyong Lan Pragyu Je Dadang Nangwa Tamche Jugi Yingi Rangshin Yimbala De Dharma Tobe Semchen Tamche Dewa Dang Dewe Gindan Den Pragyu Je Dungyao Dang Dungyao Gi Gyudan Drawa Gyurje Dungyao Mepe Dewa Dame Drawa Gyurje Nering Chada Nida Drawe Tanyang Lan Pragyurje. Randy, can you read from here to the top of page 6?
May I swiftly attain the sublime state of perfectly complete awakening for the sake of all mother sentient beings. For this purpose, I shall make offerings to the 35 Buddhas, and having invoked their heart pledge, I shall engage in the practice of confessing downfalls.
Ma semchen tamche ki dundun yurwa yangdang para sobe sanje ki gompa rinpo je to bar ja de je du dewa sheba sumju sanga chu jing tu dam gu ne dong wa shabe chuga la ju bar jo. Please turn to page 36. Page 36. This is the beginning of the sevenfold puja from the King of Noble Aspiration Prayers of the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. Lucrezia, if you can read from starting from middle of that page that says to those in as many worlds until the end of that page, and then Omar, if you can read from the beginning of page 37 to the middle of that page, which is I praise all the Sugatas, just until there. Yeah, until I praise all the Sugatas in the middle of the page.
Okay. To those in as many worlds as exist in the 10 directions, all of the lions among humans, the Tathagatas of the 3 times, to all of them without exception, I prostrate with faithful body, speech, and mind. Through the power of this prayer for excellent conduct, may all the victorious ones vividly appear in my mind. With bodies as numerous as atoms in the universe, I respectfully bow down and pay homage to all the victorious ones.
In a single atom, residing amidst their Bodhisattva sons, there are as many Buddhas as there are atoms in the entire world. In the same way, I imagine the entire Dharma expanse to be completely filled with victorious ones, with inexhaustible oceans of praise and oceans of melodious sounds exalting exalling the noble qualities of the victorious ones. I praise all the Sugatas.
Now, back to page 36, starting in that middle section. Jine Suda Juju Jidena Dusum Sheba Mi Senge Gun Dagi Malu Deda Tamjela Ludang Aye Dangwe Chagi Ho Zambo Jube Monlam Tom Dagi Gyawa Tamji Yigi Ngunzum Du Shingi Dune Lurab Tupayi Gyawa Gunla Rabdu Chaselo Duji Dena Dunye Sanje Nam Sanje Segi Una Shubada Deda Jugi Yingnam Haluba Tamje Gyawa Dagi Gangwa Mo Deda Ngaba Midze Gyazo Nam Yangi Yenla Gyazo Dragunji Gyawa Gunji Yonde Rabzo Jin Dewa Sheba Tamje Dagi Do. Page 38. Starting from with the best of flowers. Claudia, can you read page 38, starting one with the best of flowers?
With the best of flowers and exquisite garlands, music, ointments, supreme parasols, divine lights, and the finest incense, I make offerings to the victorious ones. With the finest garments, sweet fragrances, and powdered incense piled high as Mount Meru, and with everything in exalted and sublime display, I make offerings to the victorious ones. I also imagine vast and unsurpassed offerings made to all of the victorious ones. Through the power of my faith in excellent conduct, I prostrate and offer to all of the victorious ones.
Metu Damba Jengwa Damba Da Sinyen Namdan Jugba Jug Chodam Harme Chodan Tugbo Damba Yi Gyawa Deda Lane Chobar Ye Nabza Damba Namdan Drijoda Chema Burma Rira Nyamba Da Kudbe Gebar Bhabe Jugunji Gyawa Deda Layang Chobar Ji Choba Gangnan Lame Gyajewa Deda Gyawa Tamje Layang Mo Zambu Chola Debe Topdagi Gyawa Kunla Chaze Chobar Ji. Page 48. So the first two of the 7 limbs or 7 elements, which is to pay homage and to make offerings, we have done. Now continuing on to the other 5 parts, starting with confession and rejoicing in the middle of page 48. Cecile, can you read starting from I confess whatever wrong to the end of page 48?
I confess whatever wrong I have done with my body, speech, and also mind, while being overpowered by attachment, hatred, and ignorance. I rejoice in the merit of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, the solitary Buddhas, those on the path of learning, those beyond learning, and all beings.
Doja Shedan Dimu Wangi Ni Ludang Adan Deshi Igi Kyan Deba Dagi Geba Jijeba Deda Tamje Dagi Sosor Sha Joju Gyawa Kundan Sangye Se Rangya Namdan Lodan Milobdan Drowa Kunji Sonam Kangla Yang Deda Kunji Jesu Da Yirang. Jasper, can you please read page 49?
All of those lines in the worlds of the 10 directions who have been passed through the stage of Buddhahood, attaining awakening free from attachment. To all of these protectors, I wish you to turn the unsurpassed well of Dharma. To all those who intend to demonstrate Nirvana, will my palms join together, I bridge you to remain for the benefits and happiness of all beings, for as many couples as they are atoms in the universe. Whatever slight virtue I may have gathered from prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and blessing, I dedicate it to the awakening of all beings.
Gangnam Juju Jiden Drama Dan Janju Rimba Sanje Machane Kumbo Deda Dagi Tamjela Kurlo Lana Meba Gorwa Gu Nyangen Datun Gangshe Dedala Drowa Gunla Penshin Dewe Jir Keba Shingi Dune Sungparya Dagi Telmo Ramja Suwarji Jase Wadan Jujing Shabada Jese Yirang Kujing Sowayi Gewa Jungse Dagi Jisakpa Tamje Zobe Jangju Jirungu. In accordance with the 35 Sugatas' aspiration to exhaust the karmic veils of all those who remember their excellent names and pay homage to them, please bestow the fruits of this wish. In the notes on page 50, it's quotes from the White Lotus Sutra. It is this quote that says, "The Buddha is inconceivable, and the Buddha Dharma is also inconceivable. If you give rise to faith, to confidence in this inconceivability, then the result, the fruition, will also be inconceivable." So if we understand that the Buddhas, the state of being awake, is inconceivable, meaning nothing that we can really imagine or use to measure within our confused state can come close to measuring the infinite qualities of this Buddha state, the tremendous, the unimaginable freedom of this Buddha state. If we can understand that, even though we have not ourselves experienced this state of inconceivability, but if we understand that that's what Buddhas are about, and that's what the Buddha Dharma, the method, both the method for us to realize the state of Buddha, as well as Buddha Dharma in the sense of the Dharma being the way things are, if we also understand that that too is inconceivable, and then by having faith or devotion and confidence in that inconceivability. What it means to have faith or confidence in this inconceivability is to have faith or confidence that I too can reach, I too can arrive at this state of inconceivability. So when we say we have faith in the inconceivability, we're not saying, oh, I will remain, kind of ignorant and don't know, but simply believe that, Buddhas are so inconceivably great, the Buddha Dharma is so inconceivably right, and somehow I have no idea why. I just need to have faith. That's not the meaning of to give rise to faith in this inconceivability. To give rise to faith in this inconceivability is to have trust, belief, even suspicion that I too can awaken to this state of inconceivability. And if we can have that, if we will allow ourselves to have that, then the result will also be inconceivable. And that's why, from this understanding, we know why it's such great and unimaginable benefit to pay homage, to remember, and to pay homage, to make offerings to the Buddhas. And in this case, the 35 Buddhas. Yeah, you have to understand, right? This is not some kind of theistic version of like worshipping and praising our God. Here we call Buddha. And somehow then Buddhas will reward us, will think kindly of us. This is not the kind of activity, this is not the kind of devotion that we're talking about here. And this is talking about when we not only recognize that the Buddhas are inconceivable, the Dharma they teach are inconceivable, and I too can achieve the state of the inconceivable. When we understand this part, then the result of the inconceivable result can also arise. So now, page 50. This is the beginning of the first part of the 3 parts of the main practice. The 3 parts of the 3 heaps, and the 3 bundles of the main practice. As I explained, there were traditionally there are 2 ways of talking about what are the 3 elements, the 3 bundles. In one tradition of explanation, it's said to be laying bare your faults, rejoicing in the virtue of others and yourself, and then dedicating. And so that's one explanation. Another explanation says the 3 elements is paying homage to the Buddhas, and then laying bare our faults and dedication. I think if you combine these 2 explanations and you look at the structure of this sutra, this practice, I believe then when you look at it together, then the 3 elements, like I say, this is my own kind of maybe deluded way of talking about what are the 3 heaps, because another title for this text is the Sutra of the 3 Heaps. You can see in our text here. Then the 3 heaps here, I would say, would be the first heap or the first element is remembering the Buddhas and paying homage to them. Second heap is laying bare our faults and putting them down, laying them aside. Not only laying bare, but laying them aside, letting them go, these faults. Third, rejoicing in the good and in the virtue that we see with ourselves, with others, all the way from ourselves to the highest beings, the Buddhas. Recognizing this goodness, recognizing the skillful actions that they have engaged in or are engaging in and will be engaging in. And then in recognizing that, we dedicate the merit of that. We dedicate the virtue of that. So that's the third element. So in each element, two aspects, right? The first one, recognizing, meaning remembering the Buddhas, and paying homage from the heart. Second element, laying bare our faults, so meaning seeing clearly, then letting go. Third, recognizing goodness, virtue, whether we do it, whether others do it, doesn't matter, then dedicating. So in these three sections with two elements each, in each of them there is the aspect of recognition. First one is recognizing, remembering Buddhas. Second one is recognizing faults. Third one is recognizing virtue, merit. Then, with regards to the three, right? First one, when we recognize the qualities of the Buddhas, we cannot help but admire and so pay homage to that. The second one, when we recognize our faults, we have no choice, no other thing that makes more sense than to let them go, put them down. Then the third, when we recognize virtue and merit, we have no choice but want to share that, want to dedicate that to the highest good. So all three elements here begins with seeing, recognizing, then something to do. Something to do. So these are the three elements here. So starting with at the bottom of page 50. So I will start, and then section by section, as we have been doing the last few days, I will call your name. So the first one, once I have read my part, the first one would be Elena. Elena, you will start on page 51 at the part that says homage to the one who has fully conquered, that section. After Elena is Leonard. So let me start first on page 50. Throughout all time, all sentient beings take refuge in the Guru, take refuge in the Buddha, take refuge in the Dharma, take refuge in the Sangha. Homage to the Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, the perfectly complete Buddha Shakyamuni.
Homage to the one who has fully conquered with Vaya essence. Homage to the jewel, radiant light. Homage to the sovereign king of Nagas. Homage to the leader of the brave.
Leonard?
Homage to glorious joy, homage to jewel fire, homage to jewel moonlight, homage to meaningful to behold.
Adriana?
Homage to Jewel Moon, homage to the Stainless One, homage to glorious giving, homage to the pure one.
Tracy, top of page 52.
Homage to giving of purity, homage to the water god, homage to the god of water gods, homage of good glory.
Samantha?
Homage to glorious sandalwood. Homage to infinite brilliance. Homage to glorious light. Homage to glory without sorrow.
Ana Isabel?
Homage to the son of non-craving. Homage to glory of flowers.
Vicky?
Homage to the Tathagata radiant pure display of complete omniscience.
Daniela?
Homage to the Tathagata completely omniscient display of lotus light. Homage to glory of wealth. Homage to glory of mindfulness.
Christina, the very bottom of 52. Christina, you have to unmute yourself.
Back onto the page.
Bottom of 52, the very last line.
Homage to the widely renowned glorious name. Homage to the king of the victorious banner and the crown of the sovereign. Do I go more?
That's it. Joyce?
Homage to the glorious one who fully subdues. Homage to the sublime victor in battle.
Rowan?
Homage to the one gone beyond through complete victory. Homage to glorious illuminating array. Homage to all subduing lotus jewel.
Judy?
Homage to the king of Mount Meru, the Tathagata Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, abiding in a jeweled lotus.
Waiting. Waiting, if you're reading, we cannot hear you. Page 53 at the bottom. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All these and all the Tathagatas, all the Arhats, however many perfectly complete Buddhas, abide in all the worlds of the 10 directions, and all the Buddhas, the transcendent conquerors who prevail in this world. Please heed me.
54. Melissa, if you can read 2 sections until like the 10 directions.
In this and former lives without beginning, in all the states of birth within samsara, I have committed evil deeds. I have instigated others and found joy in their crimes. I have stolen the wealth of stupas, the Sangha community, and the Sangha of the 10 directions.
Lawrence? Larry, if you're reading, we cannot hear you.
I have incited others to steal and found joy in their thefts. I have committed the 5 immediate sins, have incited others to commit them, and have found joy in their downfalls. I have fully entered the path of engaging in the 10 unwholesome deeds, have incited others to enter it, and found joy in their submission.
Laura Herman, page 55, the first 2 sections.
Stirred by all these karmic veils, I and sentient beings have gone to hell, have gone to the birthplaces of animals, have gone to the worlds of hungriness, have taken birth in savage places, barbarians, as long-lived gods, and as humans with impaired sense faculties.
Mariana, until the end of this page.
I have turned to corrupted views and karmic obscuration from having failed to please the Buddhas I encountered. In the presence of the Bhagavan Buddha with the mind before their eyes, in their witness before the authentic ones, the all-knowing one, the all-seeing one. I disclose all these karmic obscurations, I declare them, I shall not hide them, and hereafter I shall sever and bind them.
Rodrigo, page 56, the first two sections, ending with animal realm.
All Buddhas, transcendent conquerors, please hit me. I gather all the roots of virtue I have accumulated in cyclic existence through having acted generously towards another samsaric sentient beings, even only offering a mouthful of food to those born in the animal realm.
Miriam, the rest of this page. If you're reading, we cannot hear you.
Yeah?
Yes, starting with together with any root of virtue.
Together with any root of virtue from having warded moral discipline, any root virtue from having practiced pure conduct, any root of virtue from having brought saint veins to full maturity, and root of virtue from having give rise to bodhicitta, the mind set on supreme awakening.
Anna Lisa, top of page 57, the first two sections.
And any root of virtue from unsurpassed primordial awareness accumulated in these and former lives without beginning within samsara. All these I dedicate them perfectly, supremely, most supremely, and sublimely towards unsurpassed, perfectly complete awakening.
Alexander, the rest of this page, 57, starting with just as the previous Bhagavan. Alexander, if you're reading, we cannot hear you. Maybe Kimberly, if you're there, can you read starting from just as the previous Buddha Bhagavan?
Just as the previous Bhagavan Buddhas perfectly performed dedication, and just as the Bhagavan Buddhas who have not yet appeared will perfectly perform dedication, and just as the present Bhagavan Buddhas perfectly perform dedication, likewise shall I perform perfect dedication. I confess each and every wrongdoing and rejoice in all merit.
Maurice, to the top of page 58 until the end of that section.
I extort and supplicate all Buddhas that may attain unsurpassed, most excellent primordial wisdom. With my palms joined together, I wholeheartedly take refuge with praiseworthy qualities as infinite as a vast ocean. All the Buddhas supreme among humans who exist at present, those who have passed into nirvana, and those who have not yet appeared.
Okay, so this is the core practice of the 35 Buddhas. So let's now go back to page 50. We will do this another time, and one more of this. And I'm going to chant the beginning part, the paying homage part to the Buddhas in Tibetan. For those of you who want to, Now you can get up and do prostrations, whether it's just bowing, from, just bowing down, standing, or half prostration or full prostration. You don't need to try to match, every Tathagata. Just this whole section when I'm doing the chanting in Tibetan, you can do as many prostrations as you're able to do. Just do it very gradually, slowly, not like trying to match every Buddha that I am saying. Then for those of you who are not going to do the prostration for whatever reasons, perhaps you want to follow with my chant, or you want to look at these Buddha images as Omar scrolled them through, the 35 Buddhas on the shared screen. Then the ones doing prostration, so when I finish chanting the paying homage part to the 35 Buddhas in Tibetan, then you can sit down and continue with me doing the laying bare and laying down and recognizing, rejoicing in virtue and merit and dedicating merit. Semchen tamje tampara lama la gyabzu jiva sanje la gyabzu jiva chola gyabzu jiva gende la gyabzu jiva chum dende deshin shepa drajumpa yang tampara sope sanje shakya tumba la cha selo durje ningpo rabdu jumba la cha selo rinchen otro la cha selo lo wangi gyabo la cha selo pavo de la cha selo pelge la cha selo rinchen me la cha selo rinchen da o la cha selo tongwa donyon la cha selo rinchen da wa la cha selo Drima me ba la cha selo pa jimba la cha selo changpa jimba la cha changpa la cha selo changpe jin la cha selo chu la cha selo chu le la cha selo pe zangpo zang la cha selo zenden la pe la cha selo ziji ta ye la cha selo o pe la cha selo nyang ye me pe la cha selo se me ki bu la cha selo me to pe la cha selo de shin she pa chang pe o ze nam pa ro pa ngom para kem pa la cha selo de shin she pa pe me o ze nam pa ro pa Yumbara Gemba la Chaselo, Nobela Chaselo, Dembe Bella Chaselo, Sempe Shindu Yondra la Chaselo, Wambo Togi Gyabzengi Gyabola Chaselo, Shindu Nambara Numbe Bella Chaselo, Yule Shindu Nambara Gyawala Chaselo, Nambara Numbe Shebe Bella Chaselo, Kune Nangwa Kobe Bella Chaselo, Rinjen Pema Nambara Numbala Chaselo, Dishin Sheba Drajumba Yandabara Sobe Sanje Rinpoche Pemala Rabdu Shubari Wangi Gyabola Chaselo. All these and all the Tathagatas, all the Arhats, however many perfectly complete Buddhas abide in the worlds of the 10 directions, and all the Buddhas and transcendent conquerors who prevail in this world, please heed me. In this and former lives without beginning, in all the states of birth within samsara, I have committed evil deeds. I have instigated others and found joy in their crimes. I have stolen the wealth of stupas, the Sangha community, and the Sangha of the 10 directions. I have incited others to steal and found joy in their thefts. I have committed the 5 immediate sins, have incited others to commit them, and have found joy in their downfalls. I have fully entered the path of engaging in the 10 unwholesome deeds, have incited others to enter it, and have found joy in their submission. Obscured by all these karmic veils, I and sentient beings have gone to hell, have gone to the birthless place, birthplaces of the animals, have gone to the worlds of hungry ghosts, have taken birth in savage places, as barbarians, as long-lived gods, and as humans with impaired sense faculties. I have turned to corrupted views and karmic obscurations from having failed to please the Buddhas I encountered. In the presence of the Bhagavan Buddhas, wisdom mind before their eyes, in their witness before the authentic ones, the all-knowing ones, the all-seeing ones, I disclose all these karmic obscurations. I declare them, I shall not hide them, and hereafter I shall sever and bind them. All Buddhas, transcendent conquerors, please heed us. We gather all the roots of virtue we have accumulated in cyclic existence, through having acted generously towards another samsaric sentient being, even only offering a mouthful of food to those born in the animal realm, together with any root of virtue from having guarded moral discipline, any root of virtue from having practiced pure conduct, any root of virtue from having brought sentient beings to full maturity, any root of virtue from having given rise to bodhicitta and the mind set on supreme awakening, and any root of virtue from unsurpassed primordial awareness accumulated in this and former lives without beginning within samsara, all these I dedicate them perfectly, supremely, most supremely, and sublimely towards unsurpassed, perfectly complete awakening, just as the previous Bhagavan Buddhas perfectly perform dedication, and just as the Bhagavan Buddhas who have not yet appeared will perfectly perform dedication, and just as the present Bhagavan Buddhas perfectly perform dedication, likewise shall I perform perfect dedication. I confess each and every wrongdoing and rejoice in all merit. I exhort and supplicate all Buddhas that I may attain unsurpassed, most excellent primordial wisdom. With my palms joined together, I wholeheartedly take refuge in all those with praiseworthy qualities as infinite as a vast ocean, all the Buddhas supreme among humans who exist at present, those who have passed into nirvana, and those who have not yet appeared. Go back to page 50. Zemjen tamche tabar lama la gyabzu jiwa sanje la gyabzu jiwa chola gyabzu jiwa gindin la gyabzu jiwa jumdinde deshin sheba drajumba yanda para zobe sanje shakya tuba la jazelo tuji nimpo radu jumba la jazelo rinjen odro la jazelo lu wangi gyabo la jazelo babo de la jazelo Belge la jazelo, rinjen me la jazelo, rinjen dao la jazelo, tongwa dongyon la jazelo, rinjen dawa la jazelo, dema me ba la jazelo, pajin la jazelo, zamba la jazelo, zambejin la jazelo, chu la jazelo, chu la jazelo, pelzang la jazelo, Zenden bella jazalo, ziji taye la jazalo, opel la jazalo, nyangye mebe bella jazalo, seme gibo la jazalo, meto bella jazalo, dishin shepa, zambe oze namba roba, ngumbara gemba la jazalo, dishin shepa beme oze namba roba, ngumbara gemba la jazalo, no bella jazalo, dembe bella jazalo, zembe shindu yondra la jazalo, Wambue togi gyao zengi gyao bola jazelo, shindu nambara nombe bella jazelo, yule shindu nambar gyao wala jazelo, nambara nombe shebe bella jazelo, Kune nangwa kobe bala jazalo, rinjen bema nambara nombala jazalo. Deshin sheba tajomba, yandabra zobe zanjerin boje bema la rabdu shumbari, wangi gyabola jazalo. All these and all the Tathagatas, all the Arhats, however many perfectly complete Buddhas abide in all the worlds of the 10 directions and all the Buddhas, the transcendent conquerors who prevail in this world. Please heed us. Judy, can you read page 54?
In this and former lives without beginning, in all the states of birth within samsara, I have committed evil deeds. I have instigated others and found joy in their crimes. I have stolen the wealth of stupas, the Sangha community, and the Sangha of the 10 directions. I have incited others to steal and found joy in their thefts. I have committed the 5 immediate sins, have incited others to commit them, and have found joy in their downfalls. I have fully entered the path of engaging in the 10 unwholesome deeds, have incited others to enter it, and have found joy in their submission.
Page 55. Cecile, if you are still there, can you read page 55?
Sí. Obscured by all those karmic veils, I and sentient beings have gone to hell, have gone to the birthplaces of animals, have gone to the worlds of hungry ghosts, have taken birth in savage place and as barbarians, as long-lived gods, and as humans with impaired sense faculties. I have turned to corrupt veils and karmic obscurations from having failed to please the Buddhas I encountered. In the presence of the Bhagavan, Buddha wisdom mind before their eyes, in the witness before the authentic ones, the all-knowing one, the all-seeing ones, I disclose all these karmic obscurations, I declare them, I shall not hide them, and hereafter I shall sever and bind them.
Page 56. Randy, can you read page 56?
The rest of 56, Dr.
Yes.
All Buddhas, transcendent conquerors, please heed me. I gather all the roots of virtue I have accumulated in the cyclic existence through having acted generously towards another samsaric sentient being, even only offering a mouthful of food to those born in the animal realm. Together with any root virtue from having guarded moral discipline, any root virtue from having practiced pure conduct, any root virtue from having brought sentient beings to full maturity, any root of virtue from having given rise to bodhicitta, the mind set on supreme awakening.
Thank you. Antonio, can you read page 57?
On any root of virtue from unsurpassed primordial awareness accumulated in these and former lives without beginning within samsara. All these I dedicate them perfectly. Supremely, most supremely, and sublimely towards unsurpassed, perfectly complete awakening. Just as the previous Bhagavan Buddhas perfectly performed dedication, and just as the Bhagavan Buddhas who have not yet appeared will perfectly perform dedication, and just as the present Bhagavan Buddhas perfectly perform dedication, likewise shall I perform perfect dedication. I confess each and every wrongdoing and rejoice in all merit.
Leonard, can you do page 58?
I exhort and supplicate all Buddhas that I may attain unsurpassed and most excellent primordial wisdom. With my palms joined together, I wholeheartedly take refuge in all those with praiseworthy qualities as infinite as a vast ocean. All the Buddhas, supreme among humans, who exist at present, those who have passed into nirvana, and those who have not yet appeared.
So if you look at the notes at the bottom of this, it says in the sutras, it is explained that the Sutra of the Three Heaps is the sublime method of the purification of downfalls from bodhicitta. So specifically, those downfalls, those failures in maintaining bodhicitta, which is our resolve to achieve state of Buddha for the benefit of beings. This Sutra of the Three Heaps is especially relevant and effective for purifying those types of lapses, those types of downfalls. So it says, the great master Shantideva said, throughout the 3 times of the day and night, so that means according to Shantideva, 6 times a day, ideally, you should recite the Sutra of the Three Heaps, 3 times in the day, 3 times in the night. By that means one will quell the remaining downfalls because of one's reliance on the victorious ones, on the Buddhas, and on bodhicitta, the mindset on enlightenment. Unquote. This particular practice is also praised as the means of purifying the downfalls of the mantra vehicle, as earlier recorded in the scripture Essential Ornament. So the author of this text, Tenzin Chukilodro, the 33rd head of Drigungkagyu, he said, you can also find in Tantric Vajrayana sources that refer to this practice and say this can also be used to purify lapses in our Vajrayana samayas, vows, bonds that we have. So the practice itself, you could say, if you want to classify it, belongs to the Sutrayana method of purifying negativities. So there is no explicit Vajrayana elements, so to say. However, in Vajrayana sources, it also says that even though it is a Sutrayana, Sutra level practice, it has the power and the capacity to purify Vajrayana lapses in samaya, lapses in pure vision. So this is praised as very effective for in both categories of the Buddha's teachings. So before we go to continue our discussion of the 4 powers and grounding that discussion on Gampopa's jewel ornament, I want to point out on page 56, on page 56 here. So after laying bare our faults, after laying bare, exposing our faults and putting them down, letting them go, starting on page 56 is the recognizing virtue and dedicating virtue. Recognizing virtue and dedicating virtue. So here, in fact, if we look closely, it is actually mostly talking about recognizing the virtuous things, the virtuous potential, the virtuous actions that we have done ourselves. In other places, when it talks about rejoicing, it's talking about rejoicing primarily in other people's virtues, other people's merit. But here, it's primarily about our own. So you can see in part the method that is going on here is because in the previous section, you are so focused on your negative actions, your faults, or the faults that you have engaged in. Maybe don't call it yours because it's not really yours. It's just faults that you have engaged in, faults that you have been caught up in, and the consequences of those faults. So it says, as a result of that, I've gone to the hell realms. As a result of that, I've gone to the animal realms. As a result of that, I've gone to the hungry ghost realm, So for that, even now in this lifetime, you can think, how many times I've gone to the hell realms, how many times I've been a hungry spirit, how many times have I let my instincts drag me around, as in animal instincts, the instincts of survival, the instincts of, reproduction, the instincts of, sort of animal-like behavior in that sense. How many times I've been dragged around by that. How many times have I acted as a hungry ghost? Always very needy, very needy for things, very needy for people's attentions, very needy for this, very needy for that. That's hungry ghost, right? How many times, my anger has dragged me down to the hell realms. I'm angry with this, I'm angry with that, I'm outraged at this, I'm outraged at that, I'm outraged at not being outraged enough. So all of that, right? We say, now I'm done with that. I'm fed up. I want to let that go. Now, in case, you get so depressed by all the faults that you have engaged in, then in this section on page 56, it says, any good that I have done, even if it is giving a little morsel, a little mouthful of food to the tiniest of beings, to an ant, to a spider, that act of generosity, I recognize, I see that, and I dedicate that. So this dedication part is saying, don't underestimate even the smallest good that you're able to do. Then in particular, here, to point out, which is really what I wanted to point out, is the 6 paramitas, the 6 perfections is here on page 56, to the top of page 57. So it says, I gather all the roots of virtue I've accumulated through having acted generously, even only offering a mouthful of food. So that's the practice of generosity. The first of the 6 paramitas, or the 6 perfections. The second is having guarded moral discipline. Practice pure conduct. That is the second paramita, the second perfection. These are the 6 perfections of bodhisattvas. On the bodhisattva path, this is what we cultivate, these 6 virtues. Third, any root of virtue from having brought sentient beings to full maturity, meaning guided sentient beings, facilitated sentient beings to ripen their potential to be awake. So this is talking about the paramita of patience. The paramita of patience, of not giving up on sentient beings. Because sentient beings can be very trying. Sentient beings can really try our patience. Sentient beings can really challenge our commitment to helping all beings. And so this is the perfection of patience. Then, any root of virtue from having given rise to bodhicitta. Sorry, this any root of virtue from having brought sentient beings to full maturity, that is that is about effort, joyful effort. Joyful effort. The previous one, any root of virtue from having practiced pure conduct, that is the patience. The pure conduct of not harming. And so pure conduct is the perfection of patience. Any root of virtue from having brought sentient beings to full maturity is effort and not giving up. So those two are actually a pair. You can put them together as a pair. The first two, generosity and moral discipline, they go hand in hand. then these two, patience and joyful effort, they go hand in hand. Then the next two, any root of virtue from having given rise to bodhicitta, that is the perfection of meditative concentration. So for bodhisattvas, what is your main topic of meditation? What do you need to stabilize? What do we need to stabilize our mind in? In bodhicitta. So in both relative bodhicitta, which is the resolve to benefit beings, ultimate bodhicitta, the realization of the emptiness of all phenomena. And the root of virtue, on the top of page 57, of unsurpassed primordial awareness is the perfection of wisdom. So the perfection of meditative concentration and wisdom is also a pair, as in they support each other. Then ultimately, of course, these 6 perfections, they all support, reinforce each other. So when we say we practice the 6 perfections, it's not like you spend, 20 lifetimes practicing the first, then 20 lifetimes practicing another one, and another one, and another one. And they are all cultivated at the same time. And so this is a reference to the 6 paramitas, the 6 perfections. Yeah? So, okay, so now we go back to Gampopa's discussion on the 4 powers. Yeah? So to refresh, right? And if you have that particular translation, it's page 156 of Kenshin Gonjo Gyaltsen's translation of the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, which was published by Snow Lion. And Snow Lion now is part of Shambhala Publications. So the 4 powers, quoting the Showing the 4 Dharma Sutra, is the power of remorse. What's translated here as the power of remorse, the power of antidote, which I call remedy, the power of resolve, and the power of reliance. So these are the 4. The power of remorse is where we started at first, where we started talking about. So with regards to this power of remorse or regret, Gampopa gives us 3 areas to investigate, 3 areas to really kind of go look into in order to give rise to genuine regret or remorse. In order to give rise to genuine regret and remorse, he says, first, investigate the meaninglessness of non-virtue, which we covered yesterday. I talked about. We really need to see, how ridiculous, how pointless, how stupid, how crazy we can get, when we get caught up in non-virtue. And I said, it's good to have a little sense of humor inserted in there because it can become so heavy so quickly, We are so, especially some of us, with our maybe past cultural, religious upbringing, we carry a lot of baggage of like judgment, very judgmental. So when we talk about non-virtue and faults and, things like that, instantly we get in the mode of like judging ourselves. Then when we judge ourselves, it's very hard to be forgiving to others either. We are also very judgmental of others because we want everyone to live up to this, some kind of moral standard. This is not about moral standards. This is not about, getting everyone to behave. When we talk about exposing faults, our own faults, when we talk about seeing clearly, laying bare, when we talk about confession, we're talking about seeing the ridiculousness, the pointlessness, the absurdity of non-virtue. Ultimately, non-virtue is so absurd because virtue is what brings about happiness, what helps us avoid suffering. And all of us want that. All of us don't want suffering. All of us want happiness and bliss. But despite how much we want this, we go about destroying our own happiness and increasing our suffering by engaging in non-virtue or engaging in unskillful actions of body, speech, and mind, of which there are 10. So when we go look at these 10, it's mentioned in our Sutra in 3 heaps. When we look at the 10 non-virtues, we can look in more detail. All of these details, they are in the jewel ornament. You're going to hear a lot of lists. You need to follow up from the jewel ornament of liberation. They're all in there. Very detailed. What are the 6 perfections? What are the 10 non-virtues? What are the 5 heinous sins? Etc., etc. You know, the jewel ornament is that volume where all the details that you are probably going to encounter, you know, in studying the Dharma, it's in there. There's a table of contents, I believe, in this particular translation. If you want to be even more diligent, you know, you produce your, not table of contents, I mean index. If you want to be even more diligent, you can, and if you're a super geek, you know, you can prepare a further index, you know, for all the categories that you encounter as you go through the jewel ornament. But as I've said before, I've said, you know, for many people it's very hard. Most people find it kind of hard, you know, to immediately jump into the jewel ornament because it's dry, you know, according to many people, the way that we get acquainted to reading, we find it dry. Especially if you read like Dharma books that got you into the door. If you're in the West, you know, I'm sure it's especially like books like by Pema Chodron, books by Chogyam Trungpa, and then later, you know, books by all the various, you know, lamas, and they're all very expansive, they're all very inspiring, you know. So if you're used to that kind of Dharma reading, then you read jewel ornament, you're like, oh gosh, you know. Because I believe fundamentally the jewel ornament was written for teachers to teach them to students. So it's almost like a teacher's manual. So it's the teacher's job to unpack the elements. However, it's still good to have this volume with you. Because all the questions that you have, you know, wait, he said 3 of what? He said 7 of what? Probably you're going to find it. I'm not going to say definitely you'll find it, but probably you're going to find it in jewel ornament. And the jewel ornament will give you very exact definitions of what these things are. Sometimes teachers, when we unpack these ideas, we might try to make it more broad and relevant, yeah? And sometimes, I have to say, we skirt the danger of going so broad that it kind of departs from what the Buddha said. And so therefore, again, it's good to have a volume like jewel ornament around, because we always need to return to that as the reference point before the teacher's commentary wander off too far away. Yeah. After all, on the relative level, most of the teachers we encounter are not literally Buddhists on the relative level. On the ultimate level, we are all Buddhists. But on the relative level, most of the teachers that we encounter and we work with, they are not literally Buddhists on the relative level. So their words, as inspiring, as helpful to us personally, we need to be able to bring those words back to. We need to be able to bring those words back to the Buddha's words. And Gampopa in the Jewel Ornament, he quotes extensively from the Buddha. So it's good to have that around. So anyway, coming back, yeah. So here, Gampopa say, investigate the meaninglessness of non-virtue. Investigate the fear. Here is translated as investigating fear of its result. What it means here is investigate the dangers, the negative consequences of non-virtue. In other words, can you see how harmful unskillful actions are? Yeah. Then next, to investigate the need to be free from non-virtue, ASAP. By investigating these three areas, you can give rise to regret or remorse. So here for each of these, investigating first one, the meaninglessness of unskillful actions. So here he says, sometimes I have committed evil deeds to subjugate enemies. So I have engaged in non-virtue in order to subjugate, meaning in order, to block, to overcome those that I see as against my welfare, what we label as enemies. And sometimes, because of relatives, because of those who I love, I care about, I have done unskillful actions. Sometimes to protect this body, sometimes to accumulate wealth. If we really think about this, you're like, yeah, definitely. So again, you can see here that this is not to be misunderstood as some kind of like moral finger pointing and said, you have been a bad person. In fact, I would say that this is like, if we're honest about it, what Gampopa is pointing out here is, it's very normal, right? You don't want enemies to harm you, so you do what you think you need to do to protect yourself. But in the course of protecting yourself against enemies, you definitely have acted unskillfully. You definitely have fed the non-virtues. It's quite normal to say, I want to protect my loved ones. I want to protect my family. And the tragedy of engaging in unskillful non-virtue out of love for those we care about. Then to protect this body. Then to accumulate wealth. Here, to accumulate wealth, can even be as innocent as to make a living. So these are not, we are not saying that these things make you a bad person. Again, karma is not about being a good person or a bad person. Karma is about, or the teachings on karma, cause and effect, is not about how you are a bad person and you can be a good person. Karma, the teachings on karma and cause and effect is about how we can free ourselves from suffering, how we can achieve true happiness. So, but, he says, because of, you can translate this section, sometimes I've committed evil deeds to subjugate enemies, sometimes to sustain relatives, sometimes to protect this body, sometimes to accumulate wealth, to make a living. So you can say, these four here. In other words, you can say, the human condition. The simple fact of being human. we have, you can say, no choice. In the sense of, no choice in the sense of that's how we feel about it, They said, I have no choice. But of course, footnote, Buddha says, no, there's always choice to choose otherwise. But the reality is, when we did these things, we felt like we had no choice. Okay? Fair. That's fair, I say. Now, after I die and go to the next life, these enemies, relatives, places, body, and wealth will not follow me. But think about it. They will not follow me. But instead, the negative karma and obscurations from the evil deeds will follow me wherever I am born, giving me no chance to escape. And so, he quotes from another sutra. Parents, siblings, sons, wives, servants, wealth, and other relatives will not follow beyond death, but one's deeds will follow. When the time of great suffering has come, my son and wife will not become refuges. And not refugee, but refuges, as in they will not be able to protect you. They will not be able to safeguard you from suffering. Suffering will be experienced by myself alone. At that time, they will not take my share. So what Gampopa is trying to do here is to, again, I think we have to be careful not to then now make an enemy out of enemies. Well, they are already enemies, but he's not recommending that we make an enemy out of relatives, places, body, and wealth. Okay. You got to be careful, Sometimes you think, he wants to now make you an enemy, or make you make enemies with everything in the world, and say, I'm only going to look out for myself. I mean, it could sound like that, right? It's saying, none of these things are going to follow you, only your own actions. So just look out for yourself. It might sound like this, but he's not talking about this. He's working with our current condition, where we so blindly, without any second thought, we think, of course it makes sense that we should protect ourselves from our enemies. Of course it makes sense that we should be partial towards our loved ones because they deserve our sacrifice. Of course, places, my home I should protect. Of course my body I should protect. Of course my wealth I should protect, So in order to point out, in order to create some space for us to see more clearly, he says, hey, what really follows you are not any of these things. So in a way, he's sort of appealing to our self-interest at first. But of course, he doesn't stop there, His whole point is to get us to think about others. But to think about others in a skillful way. See, when we want to protect our family, we want to help our family, we want to help our loved ones, right now, we're doing it unskillfully. Unskillfully. So we have to learn the skillful way. We have to learn skillful way. So here, he quotes, so I'm at the bottom of 156. Again, I'm looking at Khenchen Rinpoche's Jewel Ornament of Liberation, not the practice text we're doing. At the bottom it says, engaging in the conduct of Bodhisattva says, and this is Shantideva, leaving all, I must depart alone. But through not having understood this, I committed various kinds of evils for the sake of my friends and foes. Meaning, out of partiality towards friends and family, and bias against enemies, I have committed all these negative actions. For the sake of my friends and foes, my foes will become nothing, and my friends will become nothing. as in, we're not, Shantideva is not saying, they are nothing, but rather, when the consequences of your actions, of your negative actions come to you, and when suffering arrives, you will see that these labels of who is friend, who is family, who is enemy, who is foe, they are all kind of pointless. I too will become nothing. Likewise, all will become nothing. So Shantideva says, nothing as in, a time will come where all that matters is the quality of our life in terms of our acting skillfully or unskillfully. So I have created evil deeds for enemies, relatives, body, and wealth, but these four will not follow me for very long. Contemplating that these evil deeds are extremely troublesome and of little benefit, generate remorse. Because see how pointless it is, how absurd it is, how ridiculous it is. The other two, fear of the result. So there he's saying, recognize, what those unskillful actions have brought you. So he goes into particularly, especially he says, as you approach death and while you are dying, and then after death, what will happen? Here again, I feel you might think, oh yeah, it's religion again, using death to scare you. Here, I think the way you can think of it is this. Death need not literally mean death. Of course, it definitely means death the way you and I commonly think of death and dying. But before we even go to this degree of like death or dying, you might say, I'm pretty healthy now, Basically, here to me, it's emphasizing when things are not going well for you, right? You feel like a mini death, right? You have lost a job, you have lost a relationship, you have lost a situation, an environment, an ideal, you have lost a neighborhood, because you have moved. So when things are shaken up, when death of the old and familiar and desirable happens, at that time, when we are most vulnerable, we will see suffering come more fiercely, more strongly. Then we feel completely at the mercy of these negative consequences. His point is, don't wait until then to regret. But recognize that when that sort of things start to happen, regret. At that point, that regret is not so useful. Still useful, but now think about that. So that is the second one, to fear or to recognize, how difficult it will be that when we are weak, when we are down, the suffering will come piling in. And so prepare for that. So we don't want that. So don't engage in unskillful actions. Third, investigating the need to be free from it quickly. To be free from it quickly. Here is saying, if you think, oh, I can deal with this later. You don't know, Do you have later to clear this debt? How do you know when death is going to come? Or those mini deaths, Everything looks pretty good today, Tomorrow, you could be down with an illness. That's a mini death. Then it will be too late. So now, when you have sound body and mind, now is the time. The necessity of being freed from non-virtue quickly. Because it's a lot easier when we're in a good state of mind to make the resolve and to deepen the resolve of, I shall not act unskillfully. Because once things are gone wrong, once suffering has arrived, it's hard for us to quote-unquote behave ourselves. So much so that even people who are helping us, we lash out at them. I have friends who work as nurses in the hospitals, Oh, those are real bodhisattvas, because often patients will yell at them, scream at them, as they are trying to help, But it's because they are so much in pain and so upset, Even the people that are helping them, they like punch them. I have friends who are nurses who've gotten punched, who've gotten pushed. Not because these suffering people are bad people. They are suffering. Likewise, when we suffer, we lash out at others. Then when suffering comes, when death comes, so to say, it will be too late to try to commit to reducing non-virtue, commit to acting skillfully. So with these three considerations, he says, you can give rise to regret and remorse. And at that point, giving rise to regret and remorse can purify, can get rid of these negative programming that makes us, resort to unskillful actions immediately when things come up. So we purify that. We also purify or clear away negative results of past negative actions that we have created. So at the end of this section, this first of the four powers, Kampopa tells us, he says, just like the example of Angulimala, through the power of regret or remorse, he was able to purify the negative action of killing 999 people so that he achieved the state of Arhat before he passed away that lifetime. This is one of the famous disciples of the Buddha. And the gist of that story was he was a follower of a different spiritual tradition earlier in life. He was a very good student, very exemplary, very kind person even, to the point that he was called, his name was called non-violence, ahimsa, ahimsaka in Pali, the one who is gentle and kind, But because of jealousy and some problems among the disciples and the teacher's wife, some jealousy and some, then the teacher's wife and the fellow students conspire to have him get in trouble. So made the teacher very angry with him, and made the teacher even retaliate against him. So that the teacher told him, in order for you to achieve a great result in your practice, you have to create a garland of 1,000 fingers. And these fingers are to be taken from each life that you take. So you have to kill 999. From each of them, you have to take one finger and strewn it as a garland and wear it. When you reach 1,000, you will achieve liberation. So he believed that. He followed that. After killing 999, the last one that he had to kill was his mother. And that was when the Buddha intervened. The Buddha understood now is the time. So then the Buddha appeared. And so then when he saw the Buddha, instead of killing his mother, he said, oh good, now I have somebody else to kill, So he chased the Buddha. According to this story, as much as he chased, he couldn't reach the Buddha. But he could see that the Buddha was just walking leisurely. Walking leisurely. But he chased, he ran and he ran and he ran. Finally he said, stop! He shouted to the Buddha, stop running! The Buddha stopped, and the Buddha says, I have not run at all. You are the one running. So, of course, this is poetic, Buddha says, I do not run from anything. You, on the other hand, have been running away from happiness, chasing suffering, even though what you really want is happiness and not suffering. And he says, now it's time to stop, the Buddha said to him. Stop what you have been doing. You have been misled. You now come and follow me. In that moment, he woke up, so to say. He realized, oh my gosh, what have I done? And Buddha says, you follow me. You practice with me. I will help you. So then he became a disciple of the Buddha. And in that lifetime, he achieved the state of Arhat, having destroyed all afflictive emotions. So, Gampopa gives this story and say, through the power of regret. So these four powers, we say, when we combine all four, then we can really and truly purify our negative karma. So today, we will stop here. So we do the conclusion. Page 63. Please act according to the pledge that you took when you engaged in Bodhisattva deeds, and thus purify the negativities and downfalls of myself and other beings. By apprehending your name, by repeating and calling it again and again, I supplicate you to purify, exhaust, and cleanse entirely the negativities, downfalls, and obscurations of all wandering beings. And in these evil times, sentient beings' actions are degraded, impure, and unawakened. Our minds are suffused with negative emotions. Our offerings are scanty. They are marred by stains and other faults. Please forgive us all mistakes. The light of boundless so now to the top of 64. Protector, embodiment of great compassion. To the 64, the beginning section of the blessings at the end. The light of boundless compassion clears away the evil states and dispels demonic forces, hindrances, and hosts of wickedness. May the splendid power of the victorious ones, equal to the 100,000 suns, bring forth the happiness and fortune of infinite living beings. The stream of nectar flowing from the immaculate Dharmadhatu space fully cleanses the saints of evil tendencies. May the splendid power of the holy Dharma, of the cessation and path, bring forth happiness and fortune of infinite living beings. In order to eliminate the endless torment of cyclic existence, you have not abandoned the heavy burden of your vows and aspirations. May the splendid power of the ocean of the great and noble Bodhisattvas bring forth the happiness and fortune of infinite living beings. So now I will chant the aspiration of Sukhavati, the land of bliss of Buddha Amitabha, dedicating merit to all those who are going through the transition from this life to next life. As we know, with COVID-19, a lot of human beings have lost their lives over this disease, this pandemic. So we dedicate the merit of our practice, the purification practice. May they purify their negative karma too and be born in the land of ultimate bliss. And then the last chant says, excellent and precious bodhicitta, where it has not arisen, may it arise. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but increase higher and higher. Hema ngosa sanje nama taye dang yesu jowo tuje jembo dang yondu semba tuje tonam la sanje changsen pame korgi ko Legi ngosa bagdu me pa ye dewa chinse shawe shinkamde dashin dine zebo gyurmata gewa sinji barma chuparu Deru gene nante shodong shu dege dagi monlam tabadi joju sanje chansen tamche ki keme drupa jinji labdu so teya ta penza kriya awa boda naya so changju sem chu rinpoche Ma je ba nam ge gyur je ge ba nyam ba me pa yang go ne gong du be war shu. So we have completed day 4. If you have to go, please go. But I will leave a few minutes for any simple questions. If the question is not simple to answer, I will let you know, and then we will handle that, in the course of the teachings that I'm going to do. But if there's certain things you missed and that you're like, wait, I did not catch what was the third or the second, now it's a good time to ask or to make a comment or anything like that. But if you have to go, please go.
Guru, on page 58, after the who is present, and then at the bottom there's a footnote that accumulate 108 times. The 108 times is supposed to be from page 50 up until here?
Yes, 50 to 58.
Okay.
Again, this text, remember, is written for people who go into retreat, doing it. So it's saying you should, if you are going to do a retreat, you should do at least, 108. Yes? Someone else?
Yes, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a simple question. A group of us have been assigned to establish a practice of meditations on the Lambrin, and we are following Tupten Chodron and other meditations that we found on the Lambrin. I wanted to make a presentation before about how the Lambrin came to be alive from Tsongkhapa's commentary. And I wanted to talk about Gampopa. I wanted to go from the Buddha, Maitreya, Nasanga, the Aticca, Bodhicittas, and then Gampopa, because I think, if I read Tsongkhapa's lumbering, it's like an expanded Gampopa's jewel ornament. So I wanted to ask you, if I want to make that presentation, what main contribution is Gampopa's to Tsongkhapa? So,
yeah, sure. I don't know of any. I've not looked so closely for like direct, in any way we can say direct like influence of Gampopa on Je Rinpoche Tsongkhapa. Je Rinpoche Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chenmo is of course very famous. Gampopa's jewel ornament, Kunu Lama Rinpoche, this great bodhicitta master of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he has said that the Gampopa's jewel ornament is the first indigenous Tibetan composition of the style that you call the stages of the path, which is what Lamrim means, stages of the path, sequential, you know. Now, of course, Gampopa's jewel ornament has a precedence in Atisha's Lamp to the Path of Awakening, but Atisha composed that, you know. He's not Tibetan, so it's not indigenous composition. So you can see continuity for sure, right? You have the most kind of extensive version by Je Rinpoche. Then a few centuries before, you have Gampopa's jewel ornament. Then about a century, less than a century before, you have Atisha's lamp to the path. So anyway, what I can recommend is that there is a volume published by Wisdom Publications. It's called Stages of the Buddha's Teachings. And in there, the introduction gives a good overview of this whole Lamrim genre. It's called Stages of the Buddha's Teachings. Thupten Jinpa is the editor for this whole series. It's the Wisdom Publications very ambitious project of the volumes dedicated to each tradition. So there's one volume for Mahamudra, Kagyu Mahamudra, one volume for the Sakyapa path and result, one volume for the Kala Chakra, one volume for Nyingma, one volume for Dzogchen, you know, so on and so forth. Then this one volume, not on any specific lineage, but on this genre called Lamrim. And so the title is Stages of the Buddha's Teachings. And I forgot who wrote the introduction. Probably Thupten Jinpa wrote the introduction. And there it will have, I think, what you're looking for.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Comments?
Dr. Lai.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. I think I missed one of the paramitas. Can you repeat, please?
6 paramitas?
Yes, in page 56.
What do you have?
I have generosity, patience, effort.
Moral conduct is the second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I missed that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, so generosity, moral conduct, patience, joyful effort, meditative concentration, and wisdom.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And you can pair them, you know, 2 by 2 by 2. Generosity and moral conduct works very well practiced together. Patience and effort, joyful effort, very good together. Meditation and wisdom, very good together. Then all six, very good together. One time I remember His Holiness the Drigong Kyabgun giving a new married couple advice. They requested a blessing from him. This was in the West. And so then he applied the six perfections in the context of the new couple, you know. He said, you know, you have to practice generosity to each other. Don't be so calculating, especially when you're upset with each other. Don't be so stingy and said, well, I did this and you did not do that and this and that. And, you know, he says that's how you practice generosity. Then moral conduct, he said, be faithful to each other. Do not betray the trust and love that you have for each other. That is moral conduct. Do not do anything to harm each other. Then patience. Everybody knows that's absolutely necessary when you're living with someone. Patience and joyful effort, to see that you are in partnership, you know. Then meditative concentration is to pay attention to this person, to pay attention to their need for happiness, and then understand all of this with wisdom. That means don't get carried away by attachment to each other. Always have clear understanding of what is the ultimately, you know, the nature of impermanence and change and all of that. So these six paramitas can be applied, you know, in the workplace. How do the six paramitas work? In the volunteer organization, how do six paramitas work? When gathered together with friends and relatives, how does the six paramita works? The six paramitas work in all, you know, circumstance. So it's good to remember what these six are. Okay, ta-ta. Now have to go to work. Some of you have to go to sleep. Yes.
Gracias.
Good night. Goodbye.
Gracias.